What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Coach Booker, man, in the building, man. We back on the line sports media, on the line podcast, on the line after dark. We're gonna do it big 2025 show. This is episode two, 2025, man. We took a little break during the holidays. Hopefully, everybody had a great and wonderful holiday, man. And we appreciate everybody joining us, man. We're on Typically, we're here on Thursdays. Thursday night, we typically cover all of our middle school sports, all the CMS middle school sports, us as well as BTO. We've partnered up to make sure that we are the go-to for all the social media outlets for CMS sports moving forward. Uh, Here recently, middle school basketball, which has been very, very exciting. And we've been doing games of the week every week. And that's been super exciting for the On the Lines sports media crew, man. We've been going into some middle schools, man, and we have encountered a lot of young athletes, man, seventh graders and eighth graders, man, uh, balling athletes, man. Like kind of what we used to seeing, as we navigate our way through CMS and getting to see some of these student athletes, man, in the seventh and eighth grade, man. It's been a pleasure to be able to partner up with BTO Sports as they try to they've come up with a format for Sweet 16. Sweet 16, the best of the best, and we get the privilege to go out and shake hands and really discover some of those youth athletes. But tonight, man, we did kind of a special edition, man, due to a huge uptick in violence in our communities, man, in our neighborhoods, man. We have, we kind of lost. Um, Formerly, Beatty Sports Saints, we existed for about 17 years, man, and we mentored and coached a lot of the youth in this community. A lot of them are young teenagers now, man, and unfortunately, um, the unfortunate thing is that we tend to lose a few of them as we move forward. And we wanted tonight, we just kind of wanted to sit down and we lost a young man here recently. I won't disclose a lot of information due to the sensitivity of it, for his parents, but someone that kind of impacted a lot of us in a way that we just kind of wanted to bring on some guys who are very influential guys have been big impacts in the community and continue to be and have kids of their own. Some of these guys might have even experienced some loss for due to gun violence in our neighborhoods, man. So we wanted to come on tonight, man, and just kind of talk about, have a roundtable discussion, and try to gain some understanding and share some ideas on some ways that we can prevent some of the gun violence and some of the things that we can do to kind of head it off. But I got a couple guys. I want to bring them on. Um, I got your boy Tony C in the building, big influential guy in the neighborhood. Thomas Brown. He was one of the original OGs, Beatty Sports Saints, man, and he also Aggie. Let's get a little Aggie pride on here.
Oh
Coach
Lord.
Brown, man, and he got some pretty good athletes in his families as well, his sons, um, as well. And then you got who's this guy? Your boy Mike Tomlin. Oh no, my bad.
Here we go.
It's
Early, starting
boy
early.
Randall Clark, man, Impact Coach of the
What's up, man?
podcast, man. And
What's happening, fellas?
here with us, man. And what's up, man? We're gonna have. I think we'll have some more guys to join us. I sent out the email for them to join us, man. Some guys get a little camera shy, man. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to be on camera. I mean, it might be
Oh
some
yeah,
warrants.
oh yeah.
They might have some warrants out, man. I don't know. I don't know why these guys want to. I'm glad. Coach Brown. Thomas decided to join us. He's one of the first ones that wanted to get on and kind of just have a little discussion, man. So we'll get right after it, man. And I just asked just the basic question, man, is what do y'all think is contributing to the uptick in the gun violence and just the entire state, not just here in Charlotte, across the country, pretty much, man.
In the country,
Ages,
constantly.
it,
Yeah.
it seems like it's happening as early as 12 to at least from between 12 and 25 seems to be the most relevant ages that you see a lot of this gun violence, man, where we losing these kids, man. What do y'all think is the leading cause and gun violence? That's
I
for
think
just anybody.
I think really we losing the old school values how we were brought up. You don't have the strong network in homes like you used to. You used to have a community. You used to have that big mama in the neighborhood that would straighten you out if she saw you looking a certain type of way. You had uncles. You had.
Mhm.
We've lost that way. We have a lot of young men that are trying to run the house per se. And my grandmother used to always say, when a young man try to run the house, you got a problem. And I think a lot of that is society as we know it. People are living their life through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, social media, sexy reds of the world, and so forth. That's real talk. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is.
we're
Mhm.
living our life through video games.
No, it's real.
We're living our life through these young kids are living it through fantasies, and no one straightens them up. You know, a couple of days ago, I told a young man to pull your pants up. When the last time you actually told someone to
Mm.
pull up your pants up? I couldn't walk in my grandfather's house with my pants down or a hat in my house or at the table as we were about to eat. We've lost prayer. We families, we grew up, we had prayer and families and times we met at the kitchen table. How many times have you thought about someone meeting at the kitchen table, having a discussion on how your day went, so forth and so forth? If you have young ladies in the house, I have
Mm.
daughters. There's certain type of people that I want my daughters around. Young men. I had to take care of a couple of situations with my daughter at A&T last a couple of in the last couple of years. You're going to address me in a certain way. You're going to walk with me in a certain way, and you're going to address my daughter in a certain way. And the reason is that because they think they run things. They've lost their way, and it's a society. We've lost a generation, and how do you gain that generation back?
Right. Good question.
Mhm.
What's your take on it, Alex?
I think Brian.
Man,
I
yeah,
think Brian.
I
Brian hit
agree.
it on the head.
Go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
I think Brian hit it on the
Mhm.
head, man. It's to me, it's just the glorification of these lifestyles that aren't real, and a lot of the kids or the young people buy into it, and they don't understand the consequences or ramifications of those lifestyles. Like you said, like even down to a young lady being provocative on the internet, or kids on there toting guns on the internet. It's like there's a real life consequence that goes with trying to live that lifestyle, and a lot of them take it from what I think is social media and try to take it to real life. And a lot of those kids realize that there's consequences with that, because a lot of people not playing with you. We're older gentlemen. I'm pretty sure
Yep.
we all feel the same way. I don't have the time to play with a young kid, especially if you putting me in a position
Not
where
gonna do it.
my family or my life is in danger. It's just not gonna happen. And I think a lot of those kids don't know that. Like, it's real. If you live by
Yeah.
the gun, you die by the gun. That's just the way it's gonna work. So I think, like
Absolutely.
Brown said, we got
Yeah.
to get back to building foundations, building communities, something outside of just what's
Right.
going on in my house. But like I always say, what's going on in the house next door, because that has to be just as important as what's going on in your house.
Hmm. Yeah, because the guy next door, if he ain't getting the training your kids getting, that's gonna be the kid your kids got to watch out for.
Right.
But like
So
you said, man, I think a lot of people put it on the social media thing, but you got to understand, like you said, it starts at home. Like, who's monitoring this social media from? because what's happening is, in my opinion, is that the world has gotten so busy, parents have gotten so busy, they're working more, and they're letting that tablet babysit, right? And so those kids is over dopamine all the time. They got to constantly be stimulated, and then the parents are so on the go. They need their rest, so they still. And that's where it starts, man. There's little stuff and like that's cute, like the Disney things, but there's so many messages behind that stuff too. So, and then the influence of social media, from people they just know, their peers, it's haywire, bro.
But parents back in the day
Haywire.
worked,
No
my
respect.
grandparents, but people, my parents and my grandparents worked 2 or 3 jobs as well. But they
Right.
always sat down somewhere in that limelight. They brought you in and asked you what's going on around you. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we take that as a
Right.
crutch per se. Oh, I work so much and this and that. But tell me, you have time to do everything else that you want to do. You want to go to a certain concert,
Hmm.
want to go to a certain NFL game, you want to go to an NBA game, you want to do certain things that you do, and we use that as a crutch per se. I don't think that should be used like that in a sense because I know everyone in this group right here. I bet you as well, Coach C. Your parents or grandparents, you've seen someone go out your door a couple of times a day to try to make something over your head, correct?
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
But how do
I
we
would
gain?
say this. I agree with you in the sense. Well, here's the thing. Like, but we have to be kind of honest in the assessment too. So we didn't have those type of influences. Everything it was in our immediate circle. That's what we're influenced by. Not everything we see. You understand what I'm saying? So we're not influenced by social media. We didn't have that, right? So it was no need to have a tablet babysitters because we were more family units. If your parents are at home, you were at your aunt's house, or you're at your cousin's house. So it was more of a unit, but the family unit's gone. So it's kind of like we share a last name. That's about it. That connection is gone. So I think everybody's kind of like a fend for yourself type deal. So yeah, so of course the kid's gonna be left to their own resolve, and they can do whatever they want when the parents aren't around. Because let's just face it, things are more expensive, but people aren't making the money. So sometimes we don't have choices. So I think we have to be kind of fair what times we're in also. But to do leisurely things, I'm with you. Like to go to a concert when you could do these with your kids, I'm with that. But I'm saying for that person that really has to work and they don't have no choice because they can't afford daycare after school. You see what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
think we have to be kind of fair at that assessment also.
that's true. That's true to a point.
So,
Right.
I mean, and all those are great points and great views. Do we have enough, as far as you guys know, resources out here, programs out here that can help redirect the mindset of some of these children, the exposure that they're getting? D- have you guys seen any more organizations or know of any other organizations that these kids can be a part of that can help, kind of redirect them? I remember they used to have that midnight basketball, man, at the rec
Hmm.
centers. They used to have we used to have sleepovers that which consist of a lot of speakers and
At Betty's Ford.
guys. I mean, at
Hmm.
Beatty's, even at the Beatty Sports Saints program, man. Do you guys know of any? Are they at the fingertips of these parents, or they're not available? What do you guys know of any?
I mean,
Maybe not.
I'm so far to Luke coaching youth football, I really don't know anything. But there aren't any things because one, things are. I mean, would you trust your kid at an overnight event now?
But I know
Would you trust for his safety?
with the sheriff department and with the YMCA, they have a lot of those programs for after hour things and different trades that kids can get into. I don't think it's heavily promoted, but there are programs out there.
Hmm.
But I agree with what you're saying, Keith. There can be more money and more funds allocated, whether it's city, state, or government, to give those young people something to do. I mean, we got people, starting 501(c)(3)s all the time. It seemed like we could put more energy into actually
Yeah,
saving, through programs.
Yo, absolutely.
just got to
Well,
do the research, I guess. I think you just have to do the research.
mhm. I'll take it a little bit farther. Is that a lot of the activities back in the day, just when my oldest son, when CMS and a lot of people in the state took the activity bus away.
Hmm.
It used to be kids could stay after
Oh man,
school.
that was huge.
Just think about those kids
Hmm.
that need to be away from, they have some family situations. And you used to ride the activity
Right.
bus. You didn't play sports. You could have been for a club, choir, ROTC, or whatever. They took that away,
Hmm.
part of state of North Carolina,
Yeah.
because you could stay after school. Think about those activities. Those kids could stay after school to promote, or they might needed some extra help in the classroom. You
Right.
get what I'm getting at?
Yep.
Some things will pour back out of our
Yep. You
society.
can stay.
And another one as well as was in high school, you could go to shop, you could go to mechanical, you could do bricklaying. Those activities were pulled out of pretty much high schools in North Carolina, correct? It's some kind of coming back a little bit. But I don't know, Booker, remember at Dudley, we could go, you could stay after school, you could do all kind of different activities with your
Absolutely.
hand, carpentry,
Hmm.
all these, as some kids were not academically sound, but
Right.
they'll go to school for these trades. They pull the trades out. Think about it.
Trades. Yep.
Trades were pulled out of the school system and crime went up. Think about all those right there. About the student bus drivers that they used to use back in the day. Those kids were
Yep.
better,
I remember that.
better drivers than the adults. They gave them opportunities, they gave them monies, and they gave you some type of ownership. Not everyone is built to play sports. Not everyone.
Yeah. Nah, that's true.
Just, just think about all that. That's when the crime started.
Nah. Yeah.
It's the same thing when they did away with, the father in the home, just the mother to get that check. Things are systematically done for our race
Hmm.
as well, and it's increasing our crime and stuff. You will put those trade systems back in these high schools across the state, put the activity bus back moving around, because every parent's not built like you and I. I will run like 12 years a slave to get my daughter somewhere. She was playing basketball at Sedgefield at that time,
Hmm.
playing football for the Saints. I mean, we moving like crazy. In Booker the same way. Everyone here understands exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Think about these pieces.
Hmm.
We talking about
Yep.
activity for kids, but things are done so we can look at ourselves and bring crime amongst our race because they pull things out of the system. You put those pieces, those little
But
nuggets
those.
back, you will see a difference in the crime rate. I promise you that.
It's a great point.
Well, let me ask you this: why would they, if that's what they want, though? So who's gonna lead the push? Who has to lead the push to get those things done? Because
It's
we
for, it's
obviously
for
know
us,
our city
for us.
council is not going to do it, and all the government's not going to do it. So who has to lead the charge to get those programs, those after school programs, those trade classes, and all those activities to keep our kids occupied, right? To keep them out of the streets. Because what they want is them in the streets because the least police or least supervision they have is the greater chance for them to become criminals, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So why would they do that if that's the design?
Well, I don't think we push enough to go to certain city council meetings as well, the CMS meetings as well. Maybe something could be more in house. A closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? Well, how do they really know that if you don't have the numbers to show up? Just
Right.
think about certain things happen on certain zip codes. Those white folks show up at these meetings in CMS and council meetings. It might not move the needle then, but you see how they move to get certain things done. We just need a
Well,
little
it's
something.
based off the tax dollars, so they're gonna show up. Yeah, they're gonna show up. They're gonna get. My kid went to Lansdowne, right,
Mm-hmm.
bruh. anything that was going on at that school, you had to be there early to get a seat. I don't care what it was. The parents are
Right.
showing up, right? Then you go to other schools and you don't see that. So it's like that's what I'm saying. So who has to lead the charge? You just answered it. The parents. The
They
parents
do.
got to get out here and get to these school board meetings, to these city council meetings, to the police station. It's police athletics and all these different programs, Boy Scout, all these things. They got to get out there and say, look, we need these programs in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and not be running to the candlelight visual. That shouldn't be the number one freaking nonprofit. You see what I'm saying? Like we should put the candlelight people out of business if all possible. And no disrespect to them, but I'm
No,
saying
100%.
like
No, put
we
them out of
don't
business.
need that. We don't need that. Let's put them out of business. And no disrespect to them, but I'm sure they would love to be out of business,
Right.
right? But
Right.
so we got it starts again back in our home, and then let's talk about another thing. The churches aren't what they used to be, right? There's no strong church community church, the ties, and where because there's more stuff going on in the church than in the streets. So
Mhm.
that trust is not there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the foundation, the things that were the foundation of the black family when we were thriving, business, school, church, right? Economics, education, religion, strong families. That stuff is gone. So that's how we got to get it back. That's the only way to correct it.
True.
I can tell you, I can tell you, kind of my perspective, just one perspective is we were like when I moved to Charlotte, I was a part of the police athletic league, and what Brown talked about is when he talked about the activity buses. Those activity buses used to go and pick up kids in these different neighborhoods and introduce them to you're 100% right, Thomas. 100%. They used to pick them up, bring them to the police athletic league, take them other places, museums,
Yep.
take them, get them exposed, help them learn trades. Things that would ignite, initiate their brain, or activate their brain, and keep them
Hmm.
Yeah.
occupied on things. They were a little bit more confident about when they was in the street. They were fixing cars. When they was in
Hmm.
the street, they were building things. They
Yep.
were making money. They were able to make money because let's let's
Right.
let's keep it real. Some of the kids um wasn't some kids all every kid ain't a bright kid in school. You know what I'm saying? But he can learn a trade, right?
College
Which
is not
gives
for everybody.
which gives
Hmm.
them the confidence to go out in the community and make money, man. And you never
Hmm.
know. He may end up loving it, may end up being the best mechanic,
Hmm.
the best
Right.
builder. You could become a builder, building houses, building anything, commercial businesses, whatever. You don't have to have that degree. You don't have to
Good
be 100%,
one.
have to have that college degree. So those programs are definitely much
Yeah.
needed. I totally endorse that. What we also need, I'm tell you what we were foot soldiers, right? We were foot soldiers, and when I say that,
Yep.
from the police athletic league, which is where I started interacting with these young kids in Charlotte, to building the Beatty Sports Saints. How did we build the Beatty Sports Saints? Right, we went out in the freaking community on foot, on foot, knocked on doors, talked to kids, talked to parents. I didn't know crap about Beatty Sport. I didn't know the history of Beatty Sport, any of that. I just knew it was inner city that the police athletic league didn't want to be involved. For some reason, they were not picking up these kids. Okay. And we were like, well, why aren't they picking up these kids on Beatty Road? So me and Greg, the founders of Beatty Saints, we went in the community and just started knocking down doors, sitting down. I remember sitting down on a porch, on people's porches. I felt safe then. I felt safe back then. I didn't know anything about Beatty
Hmm.
Sport. Talking to
Yep.
kids, go in the house and get your mom. Where's your dad? Foot soldiers, man. When they saw us, they gravitated to us. Why? Because truth of the matter is, some of the young kids don't see strong African American men walking around in their neighborhoods that that's talking to them about joining organizations of sports. When they see us, sometimes they fear. There's a fear now, I think.
And you also
That
Hmm.
on the radio too, because I remember you all on the radio talking about the Saints.
Yeah,
That
we were all over, man. But I think, and I don't know how safe we feel by getting groups of men walking these different neighborhoods, man. I don't know if that'll help prevent things or what, man. But I think we missing
It
you
will.
know,
I will.
that those foot soldiers, man. I think right now the the gang members, the gang members, and these young gang members now are the ones that basically have taken over the
right,
neighborhoods.
right.
They're the guys that's walking the neighborhood
But here,
and recruiting these kids. We're not doing it anymore. Us,
yeah.
me, you, and
No.
the guys that's on here, we're not doing that. The gang members are now taking over and recruiting
Hey,
now. So,
I tell you, this Booker,
Hmm.
being Charlotte 10, I actually played PL ball.
right.
And what they do, man, they have 5, 6
Me
vans and
too.
they'll go all over Charlotte. And Philando, you know this. What they did was they start cutting the jobs.
Yep.
So they didn't want to fund those
Yep.
jobs anymore. And that's what killed those programs because those kids went everywhere. That's why
It was
after high
working
school,
too much. It was working.
yeah, it was working because you know they had basketball, football, they had boxing. All of them
Hmm.
were at
Yes.
every rec center in the neighborhood. So
Yep.
now kids can't even really get to the rec centers unless there's a rec center in their neighborhood.
Hmm.
Right.
But to speak what Coach Brown was talking about, my sister does internships yearly for college kids. It's hard to recruit kids there. I know a guy named Stanley Potts does a gaming thing for kids also. But what we found, man, is that the attention span of the kids is so small that it's actually hard for them to actually commit to a program like they
Right.
would have committed to a
Hmm.
Christian program or auto mechanic program back in the past. So it's really hard trying to find what they're interested in and what they like. I mean, you used to could do it with production and movies or in music, but now they don't
Takes
want to
too
do that
long.
because they feel like they could just like we're doing right now, plug up their phone and get on the internet and put out there whatever it is they want to put
Yeah.
out there. So I think the biggest thing, and Booker, you made me think about this when we're talking about um, being influential, pushing our ideas and our thoughts on the city council and government officials.
Hmm.
I think we got to do more outside of when it actually touches our doorstep because the
Correct.
things, the
I agree.
crime, shootings, all this is always going on. It's just not important until it's, wait, I know that kid. You know what I mean? And it's sad to say that it
Yeah.
works like that. That's the truth. So we got to be mindful. Not only us as coaches are losing kids, or whether it be to the cemetery or to the prison, that other people are doing that too. So it's not
Right.
just kids in our neighborhood, but it's just young black kids across Charlotte and the state as well. So what can we do to kind of be on the proactive side as opposed to the reactive side? Waiting for it to happen because we know it's happening.
Right.
Totally agree.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Keith.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was thinking. It's something that occurred to me when we asked, like, if we think about this, who has the strongest hold on kids in Charlotte, in most cities, inner cities? These youth football coaches, right?
You football coach.
So
Yeah.
if you take an initiative to the league, they have the they have more access to kids than any other thing, any other sport, any other organizations going on right now. There's 20,000 teams, there's 30,000 leagues, it's year round. They have more influence on kids than anybody else, right? So you take it to the leagues and say, listen, if this team organization doesn't have some type of after school program, some kind of nonprofit that's actually benefiting kids besides football, they shouldn't be allowed to play. Instead of just taking these kids' money and basically shopping them, playing them, and just dogging their bodies out for all year round for their gain. If you're going to not have something really off of this kid outside of football, you shouldn't be allowed to have an organization. And if you
100%.
want, they got more influence than anybody. They have more influence than anybody in this city and most inner cities around the country. So if you're
100%.
going to say you for the kids, then you have to show you for the kids, or you can't have an organization. I guarantee you, things will change.
Absolutely great point.
Huge change.
Absolutely. Hey, George, thanks for joining us. I think your might be muted.
Yeah, I was trying
No,
to.
no, we can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
I
assuming
can
you
hear you,
want to
George.
you felt compelled to kind of weigh in on some of the conversation. So go ahead if you want to. Just kind of tell us
Yeah,
what you think.
I'm just listening. Of course, the situation from last night, I don't have, any details, but it's just sad. I just was thinking about kids that I've coached in the last 3.5 years, 4 kids, that I personally had hands on, were lost to gun violence, and it's just ridiculous at this point. And this is a never ending cycle. It's not just here in Charlotte. I get those calls from back home and other places. So I've been listening to you guys trying to think of and talk about solutions. I
Right.
really don't have any because a lot of this stuff should be top of mind for our government. Everything that Thomas talked about, the programs. I just was thinking about the programs that are lost in every community. When I was coming up, we had the rec center, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that we had neighborhood schools. So we had schools that were right there in the communities that we could walk to. So it wasn't a bus involved. It kind of kept people of like economic and everything else kind of close together. So
Yeah.
a lot of times you're dealing with a kid in your apartment building, and you called him your brother. Okay, so you grew up with this
Right.
guy. You don't have little beef, but you never have that big beef that ends in this kind of stuff. So, I'm just saddened because I think back to joining Beatties Ford. That was probably my big mentorship opportunity here in Charlotte when I got here. And for all the faces and families that we have encountered, I feel for those who have a loss, but I try to keep my hands on as many kids as I can. We have some kids that are public that are easier to find, if they're playing a sport or they're off now into a certain business and with social media. But there are kids that we kind of lose track of collectively. And that's the part that I would love for us to do. I have rosters at home from many years. I would love for us to do a canvassing and see where these young men and young women are, because we had cheerleading as well.
Yeah.
See where they are in their life cycle, and if there's something that we can do, to help them. A lot of it doesn't have to be financial, and we
Right.
learned that through the program. A lot of it is attention. If we can go back and offer attention to these young people, maybe the word that we can offer them might be the thing that gets them over the hump, to move on to the next day. So that's my input, and I appreciate y'all giving me that opportunity to speak.
Yeah. No problem. Um, I I think Philando touched on, made a good point. And I think if we were to come up with, we say there's no solutions. Where do we start? Where do we try to curve it? You know, what ages does it start? It's getting younger and younger, right? So where do we start? Where do we cut it off? If we wanted to do more than what we're doing now, where do we start? With the youth organizations that are still existing. Um, uh, at the PALs, what is the message when those kids are there? I don't know what there's PAL still exists. So what is their what's the message? Do they take that moment sometimes and get away from sports and talk about the negative exposure that's going on, and the things that these kids are being negatively exposed to in these neighborhoods, how they're being exposed to it? You got to have that conversation with those kids. Where do you have those conversations when you
I
get
really think
American?
it starts in the middle school years. That's
But,
where
but
the
okay,
big
wait a minute. The
grab.
American Youth Football League has over 1,200 kids, right? Throughout different organizations. I'm talking about kids ages 5 to to 14, right? Then you got within the AYF, you have probably say 30 different organizations. You got United Youth Football League, you have AAU, and you have Pop Warner. If we were going to start, I'm just saying, if there was a solution, if we wanted to start somewhere, it would be guys that would have to go in like us and say, "Hey, can we have a moment with your kids?" And maybe just have those conversations. Maybe I'm sure we would have to introduce them to some type of programs, preventive programs or whatever, helpful programs like we talked about earlier. But they have the most impact. They could potentially have the most impact in redirecting these kids. Is the youth organization? That's a great point. I just wanted to bring that point back out, Joe.
I agree. I think it should be like it's mandatory. It should be no question. That should be the first question that they ask you. Okay, what's your nonprofit and what do you do for kids outside of football that you're doing and not what we're gonna do? What do you have in place right now before we allow you into this league? I mean, is as simple as it seems, it should be the priority. Like we just said, they have the most influence amongst kids than anything in this country. You know,
They do.
rivaled by rap music, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
but
back then, Pop Warner. I remember when Pop Warner interviewed us when we tried to when we initially started the Base for Saints and we wanted to, get involved in a football organization. So they used to ask us, what else. I mean, we went through a strict interview. What else do you do
Right.
outside of football? What other programs can you offer these kids? How can you sustain your funding? How do you plan to sustain your funding? Keep keep your equipment updated. Um, so they did ask those questions that you're talking about, Philando. Back then, that was Pop Warner. I don't know if their, of course, I don't know if their interest was the same, to try to help prevent kids from you know, potentially getting into
Hmm.
street violence and gang violence and stuff like that. But they did ask those upfront questions, and that was part of whether you were qualified to be a part of the Pop Warner organization. So I think they do need to go back to that
Hmm.
because certainly gun violence wasn't anywhere close to as relevant as it is now. So we've lost we've lost it
Right.
somewhere. There's been a huge disconnect.
Yeah,
So
we got to replant the tree. Because I'm sitting here thinking about it. We're talking about
Right.
football and basketball and those things. The root needs to be the mentorship. The
yeah,
foundation needs to be mentorship, pure, just mentorship. All these other roots come off because as someone said, and we know this, all kids are not going to be a football player, basketball. There's so many other avenues. So we got to replant the trees and then get the
Hmm.
right fertilizer, which is
Absolutely.
the communities, the men, the governmental agencies, the funding, because we know the lifestyle. Even when we were with Beatties Ford, getting the money was always the challenge.
certainly.
The mission, we had a mission statement. We touched at a lot of things outside of football,
Hmm.
but when it came time to get the money, we couldn't find too many community members that would come up and help us get a couple dollars. We couldn't even get a lot of the parents to pay the dues. We would foot the bill and we
Hmm.
did it gladly because we wanted to see other kids succeed. That's one thing I loved about Beatties Ford is that we came from some of everywhere. Like Thomas says, some of us had means to do things that others didn't. We can drive around and pick up kids from all over the city, and because we had gas money, but we gave of
Hmm.
ourselves a little bit more. And myself, I'll take some blame for myself that once my children started getting of age and started doing things that required my attention, I didn't do a good job of multitasking. I gave up things that I probably still could have had my foot in, whether it was my fraternity, whether social activities, even certain corporate things. So I'm going to take it upon myself to rethink who I am and see how I can help the next person. And I think we all just need to look introspective and figure out how we can start from the root of something and build out. So one of the
hey, G,
yeah.
that sounds like an excellent plan, but in the last 10 years that I've known you, always been present. So Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
every day.
I don't.
all
Yeah,
the time.
I don't know how much you're gonna question yourself for the work that you done did. Yeah, it's a little crazy. But I'm totally with you.
And I
I
Um,
think
appreciate
you.
that.
I'm totally with you as far as the
Yeah,
root,
for
man. But
sure, man.
go ahead, Philando.
No, I was gonna say it's almost hard to find a youth event and not see George there.
You ain't
And
never
I
been
think
to.
he's speaking more on his
Yeah.
personal side,
Oh
more
no, he's
personal than
there.
the
He's been there.
public. I think that's what's.
He's been there.
Yeah,
And
I'm saying when
and
he was saying taking it upon himself to change things, I think he was speaking more about his public, personal life.
Yeah. Yeah, just rearranging things to be back more present. Yeah, yeah, I go to
Yeah,
game because frankly, I love the game. I love to see kids that I know. I'm aging out of kids that I know now, so I support the game more than that. But things that I still feel like I have a value to people. But that's we all still talk to the older kids,
absolutely.
the older young men, and there's value in that for them and us. So
right.
I think we also need to try and engage that younger group, those alumni, because they speak the language a little bit better as we start to age out. When I was looking at pictures today, the team, the quad, I first got him on, it was 2012. That's a lifetime ago.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I don't know
Hmm.
the music, I don't know the culture, but there's some kid who was coming up through our program who's 21, 22, who knows that stuff that could be, that bridge or be that person. So I think
correct.
we need to also reach back to that because I have seen some young men, from out of our baby sport family who are coaching now, who are supporting their younger siblings and doing a fantastic job.
Yep.
So we as the older guys, we need to keep them
Hmm.
encouraged that they're doing the good work now. So
I think the
Yep.
word root from UG is sticking with me, man. And Coach A.T. Tillman always speaks about this, about how more important it is being a mentor than a coach. And I think us as
Hmm.
coaches, I think there are instructions from God, and it's something placed on us to work with these kids, right?
Certainly.
And I spoke about it this week in a group that I have about not allowing your devil talents to outshine your God given talents.
mm,
And I don't want to,
Hmm.
catch the guys who are younger guys that are in the coaching at the youth level, but just being around it don't seem like they care. The idea behind being a mentor and doing it the right way, and like Coach Clark said, implementing programs that are more than football, it doesn't seem like they care. All they care about
this
is just
way.
boasting on Saturdays and boasting on the internet. And like Booker said, if PAL or if AYF is implementing different criterias and prerequisites that you got to have, some of these guys will just find another league or a way to go without doing it the right way.
Yeah,
Yep.
And that's the
that's it.
sad part about
Hmm.
it.
That is.
So it's like, can
Yep.
we cut a corner to get our objective across? And we know, I wouldn't dare say anybody that spends 3 to 4 days a week with a kid who isn't their own don't care about kids. That's far from the truth. But we
Right.
also have to get these young guys to be mindful and understand how much of an influence they have and how much power they have to, you know,
Shape
uh,
the next person.
yeah, to be a part of the trajectory of these kids' life, because we can lead them to the right place and we can also lead them to the wrong place.
Yeah.
And in the same way
Mm.
people look at the
Absolutely.
internet, or they might look at parenting or whatever it is, the influence is the result of what taken away from those kids or influencing them in a negative way. It's not going to rear its head to probably 3 to 4 years, and at that point it's too late.
Mm.
We gotta push how important now
Yeah.
is right now.
That's a
Absolutely.
fact, Jack.
And there's definitely
I totally agree. 100%.
no perfect
Mhm.
plan, but I think we got to do something. And you make a good point, Tony. With some of the younger guys, we got to continue to mentor them because a lot of us got into it because we had a kid that was in it. And if you did it the right way, you wanted to give as much to everybody else's kid as you gave to your kid. And that's where I felt that's how I've
Mhm.
always done it. I'm going to root for everybody's kid, not just my own. I want everybody to be successful, and I want them to be successful in
Absolutely.
what it is they're good at. You know, I had the pleasure of one of our former coach's son graduated over the summer, They had a family, celebration for them. And I got to see a lot of not only our families, but a lot of our kids. Some of the older kids are going
Mhm.
into the military. They're doing jobs. One of the kids was in the welding. We got some other kids who are equestrians and entrepreneurs. So reaching
Yeah.
back and hey to those kids and how you doing, that's what we need to do because they're going to be our leaders. Because
Mhm.
again, some of us we're
Right.
aging out. I can't show the kids how to do up downs because I'll be more down than I'll be up. You know what I'm saying? Fernando that part, but we need that next group of men to come up behind us. And like I said, I have some rosters that include some of those young men I'm thinking of that we need to try and reach back to and see if we can get them engaged. And this
A
is not
reunion.
and
Which
it's
is
not just here. We got to multiply this thing thousands and thousands of times all over the country. I
yeah.
mean, every community is dealing with the same. We're in every community we're dealing with the exact same thing, and that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think we at some point we got to have a big reunion, trick people. We having a big reunion, and then kind of from there
I
tell
think
them
we have
some
the
of our
cachet
initiatives.
to say that we're going to have a Beatties Ford reunion, and we're going to do it at this place at this time. We want families and former players. I think we could get people to a place,
Yeah,
and it may not be one time. It may have to be several times. But if
yeah,
we establish what we're trying to do and put a mission together and a calling out to people, most people will side on humanity. I would think.
yeah,
But
and that's
unfortunately, we're gonna have a reunion at this funeral that's going to come about.
yeah,
And that's
Well,
the when we
and
have two
we
comments.
shouldn't, be meeting. We meet at certain places that we shouldn't sometime, but maybe that'll be the opportunity to reach back and start something like
Yeah.
that. All the people that's going to young men that's going to show up for his homegoing. I hate to,
yeah,
some things happen. I hate to say it for a reason, not for a reason, but something to flip us sometime to get some actions going. You know,
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of young men are doing some real good things out here. I'm so
Yeah.
proud of when I see them, on their Facebook or their Instagram, or it's just like just like Booker's son. I mean, I've known him since he was a young, probably about 10 years old. He played for me 1 year over at the Park Church, and
yep,
man that passed away, he was on my basketball team as well. After the football season for the Saints, I said, "Come on and play some basketball with me." You know, just to we don't have that engagement like we should sometimes, and we are so busy doing other things, but. I just feel for his family at this point because I know him so well since he was probably about 10 years old, you know.
yeah,
Exactly.
man.
I
It's
think
it's a sad thing. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I think what you said, Coach G, is very important, man. It's just us reaching out to those guys because we got more success stories than the stories that we're hearing about
Oh,
today.
yeah,
True.
And
oh, absolutely.
and that's why I think it's important that you got kids that are doing it the right way, who have that success. Where you got, the Zion Booker Foundation, the Jalen Bowden Foundation, the Kevin
Hmm.
Costello Foundation. Those kids that are really not only owning their own talents and gifts, but trying to really do something to give back to those communities. So I'm with you on that, man. Just getting to these kids and saying, hey, what can you do? Because sometimes when you do have that success, and sometimes we'll see it in our own kids, that they get so caught up in the success that they don't understand that a lot of that success was because there was a community, there was a village that put their arms around them so they can get to where they are. And we know as young people, we're so focused on what we're trying to get to that we don't stop to see how important that is.
That's true.
Correct.
Yeah,
Mhm.
man. I think
Orlando,
that
you want to
let
add
me some of
anything?
that movie. Yeah, man. I was gonna say just based off what George was saying. There's a movie out, Forge. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that,
That's my
Mhm.
move.
but it's basically about shit. And I think that's exactly what we need to do. Is like you grab a kid and we form a group, and each one of us pull a kid in, and next thing you know, this thing is growing. 10 years from now, those kids pull people in. So, I think you build a strong community like that. With men like us, you know, that's has expanded a lot of kids, but more than anything, we want to see them do the right thing and see them be successful. So I think something like that, starting some type of group where, like you said, we can have the reunion and then kind of introduce a program like that. But we have to be really intentional about it and not just say it. You know what I mean? So, um, but I think one of my questions is, what role you think like the church plays in all this? Like, what role? How influential can the church be in something like this?
I mean, they definitely can be influential because they're on every corner, so they can, they have access to everybody. And I won't knock churches because I know a lot of churches that do have programs, that are internal to their church, and maybe they do a better job of communicating it out or allowing people who are not, in their church community to be a part of them. But I won't completely knock them. But just like anything, there's more people that need help than programs to support them. So. But I think the call would be the same thing. If a solid program is developed, like Booker said, you got to walk and knock on doors. You got to knock on those church doors and say, "Hey, I have this thing. Are you interested in helping us?" And you're gonna get some doors slammed in your face, but you might get some to say, "Hey, every third Wednesday you can have our basement for fellowship or tutoring or what have you." So I won't knock them all because I think there's some good ones, but the thing we don't have is any um, thing that's cohesive or congealed. That's the problem. Everything is independently owned and operated, to use a term. So that's my 2 cents. I think we got to just knock on doors. And when I say we, anybody who has a program, you got to knock on doors of people who have more touch in communities than you may have.
Exactly.
Hey, I will say this, man, and Coach George made me think about it, man. I know I've been to what's the sports camp, Booker?
Huh?
What's your sports camp?
My sports camp that I had was
Compete sports.
compete sports. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to, when it comes to you guys directly, whether it's compete sports, and then, just the period that I've known you guys, I want you guys to be mindful that whether it's you're in the weight room, you're in the games, you're inviting kids to camps and get them involved. I want you guys to know that me personally, I've seen you doing your part, because it's just those little evenings where it's a football camp, where
Yeah.
we're weightlifting or training, that make a big difference more than what we think it may have. You know what I mean? So the question isn't to us, and I'm just saying this if you guys maybe think, because I know we're always thinking of what we could have done different. It's just how do we get more people to be of the like and same, share the same ideas that we have, because we're doing it and we're not the only ones doing it. But like Coach G said, we just got to find a way to build a collective, man, to get it done on a big scale. Because those 1 day camps and 2 day camps and weekends, those mean a lot to those kids, man. More than we understand that they do.
Absolutely, they do.
They
Man, I
do.
wanted to talk about the potential. I just wanted to talk about, and maybe Philando, you probably could help me out with this. It's the mental health of these kids,
Mhm.
because apparently something pushes a kid to move from being this innocent kid at, and I've said this before, 7, 8, 9, 10, cute little kid, great little athlete, smart in school, and then all of a sudden everything goes to the left. They start getting exposed to
Mhm.
guns, sex, drugs. Where in the heck is the disconnect between that cute little kid to when they actually start engaging in all this negative activity, man? Where do y'all think that, what ages do y'all think that start at, and how in the world do
I
they get exposed to so much so fast? And and
because
it just goes downhill from there.
I have an idea about that, Booker. And I've thought about that before. That same question. It's funny that you asked that. I think when we were younger, everybody was content with the place that they had amongst their peers. So I know I'm not one of the cool kids. I know I don't play football. I don't know I don't play basketball. I'm just okay with being me. To me, the kids of today is they have to fit in somewhere, as opposed
Mhm.
to, just being content with who they are. So I have to push whatever it is I'm really not. So if it's a young girl, I got to be overly promiscuous to fit in with this group to get this attention. As if it's a young guy, I got to be super tough or super thug to fit in with this group, because it just seemed like it's just too much pressure to just be an individual for some
Right.
reason. And that's just my thought. It's
No,
like
that's,
it's too much pressure to
I think
be like, just be yourself and let that be the end of it.
well, I
I
think
got
Coach
association.
said
I
something.
gotta be gang. I gotta talk a certain way. I have to be a certain way in order to be accepted or get approval from people. Again, whether it's the internet or whether it's social media or it's in person, it's just so much seeking approval from others for
Mhm.
some reason. I don't know why it is, but that's just what it is to me.
No.
I think what Booker's question, the answer to that, Coach Brown said something about that. It's like it starts in middle school. You start kind of, you know, you seeing different things than you saw in middle school, elementary school, because you're not going to school with different people now, right? So you start gravitating towards certain things, and then obviously the influence of music and social media, and there's no individuality, like you said. People are afraid to be themselves, so the easiest thing to do for comfort and security is to conform with the masses, right? So, and a lot of it goes back to me. You see a lot more divorces these days, right? So the family dynamic breaks down, and you don't have the influence of both parents, whether mother and father, in the same place, and that influence goes, and then they start looking for that influence outside the home, and they're easily influenced because, like you said, they want to be one of the cool kids. So when you don't have that disciplinary at home to enforce these things, it starts to get away from it. And like Booker said, what happened to that little cute kid? Well, a lot of times that's what happened to that cute kid.
Well, a
The
lot of
family
it is
dynamic.
right, and that's why they call middle school called the middle passage. My aunt taught school in Statesville High School, Statesville, about 20 some years, and she always said that middle school years are where we lose a lot of our kids and a lot of our young kids. And also, I really think as a society we have lost so much when we integrated our schools with white folks. You can look at our black males. I've had issues. I don't know if you, Booker or whoever, have young men goes into the school system and they have issues at school. And the reason why a lot of them have issues at school is that white teacher. That white female teacher, that same bright kid, bright eye, come out of pre-K to the fifth grade, he gets to middle school, and there are always one or two that would try to destroy them in some kind of way. He's too hyper. He needs this. He doesn't follow attention, so forth and so forth. Little Johnny is the same kid, and they don't categorize him that way. Maybe we ought to put him on some drugs. Maybe we ought to do this. Maybe we ought to do that. I've had issues with white teachers. I have an older son that's 30 some years old, and then my son that I have now that's at Campbell. I've had issues with the white teacher, how she wants to destroy the young black male. She's going to give them, not all of them, it's black teachers as well, because they work in cahoots. We've lost so much as a society when we integrated these schools. When it was back in the day when it was just our schools, we owned our own. A lot of those issues as well. Think about it now. If we all think about it, look at that white teacher. I bet Booker's had a situation with his sons with
Certainly,
white teachers, huh?
you
You know
you
what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, just think about it. They want to destroy them. Zion or your other son is bright, very bright young men. All of a sudden, why am I getting this grade right here? I've had conferences with white teachers about how their mindset is. Think about, go back and listen to Malcolm X. How can the press that trying to destroy us, impress us, teach our kids?
Yep.
And some of the root of the problem is right there as well. That's where some of the problem is lies. That bright young man you talking about, how does that young man change so much? My son was at Howland Creek, the middle at Montessori. And when he got to the upper grades, it was this one white teacher and this Indian teacher seemed like trying to destroy his joy. His grades fell off. He's doing this and doing that. I never had those type of problems. I said, what is the problem? And that's why I moved him out of there this last year. Think about some of the young men that you all know, and you can go back to the source a little bit. So some of it's at CMS. They spend majority of their times where? In school. With that what? White teacher.
Yes.
White female teacher. You don't have a lot of black males in the school system, correct? They're either PE coaches, maybe teaching a little English and a little math. Think about it. It's less than what, 9 or 10%? I'm just looking at some of the route. We're looking at all avenues of where our kids are. Some
Absolutely.
of it's based on our own, but some of it's going into the school system as well, and your young men change. Isn't that right or wrong?
That's correct.
Yeah,
I think, Brian, I think it's a lot of right with what you're saying. In just my years and just being in academia and in the school system, I've witnessed things, that you're speaking of. My son has a white teacher currently. But I think it's and stuff like that does actually scare me. But I think it goes back to us being intentional about our parenting and setting expectation from the teachers, what we want and what we demand. But I wouldn't simplify it as just a white teacher. I'm gonna be honest with you. The majority of the people that I've witnessed in academia, especially in the high school stages, really don't give a damn about the kids.
No, they don't. They just definitely check.
Whether it be the teachers, and the majority of the time, it ain't popular for me to say it, most of the high school football coaches don't give a damn about the kids.
They don't.
So, in the same way that you said that, a person who a kid looks up to as they may see as a mentor or someone that's going to usher them into the next stage of that life, when those kids get that type of energy from those people who may be unhappy people who are experiencing things in their life or who aren't qualified to work with young people or understand the importance of that role, that can deter a kid and have them go in a totally different direction. Because I'm telling you, I see it not just in the classroom, I see it on the football field all
That's
the time.
true. That's
Where
true.
I don't am about that kid, and now this kid is cutting the coach out, and he done walked off the football field. Football was his safe haven away from the world. So now what is this kid supposed to do?
That is true.
He's definitely staying now. So I think you are totally correct. So I won't just identify one group. I'm gonna go with educators all together.
Yeah, that coach spends so much time with your young men, if it's wrestling, whatever it is. I mean, they're with them. It's just, they have a big influence of them.
So they're missing a lot of sensitivity training and just a lot of understanding of, who your demographic is. I know in corporate America, we do it all the time, and I think the shit is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Totally a waste of time if just to, cover the company's ass in case they get a sexual harassment lawsuit or something like that. It's a waste of time for me. But in areas like you say, where kids and education, there definitely needs to be on the teacher work day instead of us cleaning up the classroom. We need to be doing some damn training.
That's true. You're right.
On how to handle these kids.
But Steve brought something to mind, and every household is not strong, and we know this, but advocacy starts in the home. We have to be parents that are willing to go to bat for our kids and go to those schools like sounds like Brown did and stand up for our kids. We also have to be, as parents, tough-skinned enough to let other people into our kids' lives that we feel are good mentors for them. Because with my children, I've always had someone who was outside of the household that I could have passed the message to my children, because they will take the message from them versus dad just telling me what to do. I'll put it like that. So that was one thing growing up. I grew up in communities where front doors were open. You can go into anybody's house, anybody could whoop your butt, but you had people around you who cared about you. We've now gotten to the place where we're in our house. We don't even know our neighbors to the left and the right anymore. We don't even hang out with our families anymore. I'm guilty of it. I got so many family members, little cousins and stuff, and I try to get to their stuff, but I haven't said, "Oh, y'all come to the house every Saturday so that we can do something that I can take some of the burden off of your parent." Again, we have to curb this stuff because, yeah, our kids are like us. How slick were all of us as middle schoolers that our parents never knew things that we did 50 years later? Some of the stuff I tell my mother that I did, her mouth drops. She had no idea the things I was exposed to, the things that I did. And we can't think our kids are not experiencing the same things, but we got to be able and willing to have the tough conversations with them, but also have other people willing to invest in them. And that's the only way that I feel like my children have moved on, is because there were other people helping them through things that I still don't even know about. And mental health right now is one of the big things. You talk about the Forge, Philando. I sent my son that movie maybe 2-3 weeks ago. We were having a conversation, and I was asking him, he had a couple games that I wasn't proud of. Not let me not say proud. I didn't feel like he played his best. Okay. So as a father, your child's process, and you say this has to be something that's distracting them. Okay. And the Forge was the perfect movie for me to send to him after he told me the things that he did the prior week. After his bad game, he said, "I got rid of all my social media. I did all this. The next game, the results were better." But the Forge taught that lesson that God gave this young man an opportunity to get rid of something so that he can get the things that he wants. And perfect movie. Again, I encourage any of you to look at it. I came across it by accident. No one told me. I just happened to be laying on the couch late one night. But the message was very deep, and I've shared it with my son and other people because I think that's one of the things we can do. It's a simple thing that we can kind of follow an example from a movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That movie was shot here in Charlotte also.
It sure was. Yep.
Local
Background was Charlotte.
movie.
Well, gentlemen,
I
what's the time in Booker? Because I gotta run.
No, we're good, man. I was gonna actually kind of end it right here. We've been on for an hour or so. So I think it's a part two to this. Yeah, certainly, because I'm sure there's
absolutely.
other perspectives that some other people would like to add, man. I mean, the issues that the issues we facing with these kids are so complex, um, and very unsettling, to say the least. This youth violence and the solutions won't come overnight, but the change starts with these type of conversations. So, I like to thank you guys, um, you know, coming on and tackling and adding some insight on a lot of these issues. So I appreciate you guys coming on, man. Unless anybody have any other, things you like to add before we get off, man.
I just
Hey
want to say
man,
for our family. I'm praying for the
I like
family.
to. Yeah, I was gonna say, man. We spoke about a lot of solutions, man. And one thing that we didn't do, and I know we all mindful, we didn't um, implement God into the conversation or acknowledge how important that is. So, as five men just on the line talking about how we can improve the community. I think it'd be cool or fitting if one of us could, end this in a prayer. Not only for the kids whose lives we want to change, but for the families who've been changed this week.
But since you brought it up, big dog, we all in.
Let's
let
do
me
it.
say one thing before we do that, Tony.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that's important for all, because I'm a really big proponent of it, we all as men, these men that's on the panel, we need to make sure that our mental health They need to do what we need to do so we can show up these other relationships. So I think, man, take your mental health very seriously. Take your time to be with yourself, learn yourself. Like you said, George, you're trying to relearn yourself. Take that time, man, because it's kind of like the the playing theory. Like you got to save yourself first.
Correct.
I think that's so important. We take care of ourselves, our mental health. So because we're fathers, we're husbands, we're friends, we're business owners or employees, we have a lot of other relationships we have to show up for. So let's make sure. I beg you guys, take care of yourself first, man. Take care of yourself. Take time and make sure you're good. That's why.
Tony?
Yeah, I knock it out. We want to bow our heads. Lord, we come to you as humble as possible. We ask that you continue to rule our thoughts and guide our lives. We want to pray for the families who've lost and experiencing loss, hurt, and pain. Not only those who've lost a child, but those who've lost a child due to involvement in gang violence. We ask that you continue to guide us and lead us in the right direction so we can be influential and live out our purpose in our own lives as we implement change and growth in others as mentors. It's in Jesus' name we pray today and every day. Amen.
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 All right, guys.
Thank you
Enjoy
all.
the rest of your week, man. Your weekend, we don't talk, man. And hopefully you guys will be able to come back for part 2.
Yeah,
Let's knock it out, man.
definitely
Hey, I
let
love
me
you
know
guys,
about
man.
it,
Good to
Booker,
see
so
you.
I can get on. Okay.
Okay, Coach.
All right. Thank you. All right.